very warm welcome to our today's Startup and Social Business Forum. It's really a great pleasure to have you all in the room today, I think for one of the most exciting events of the conference, to see the great solutions of the social entrepreneurs from around the world. My name is Markus Freiburg. I'm the co-founder and managing director of the financing agency of social entrepreneurship. So we are a spin-off of Ashoka and support social enterprises in raising hybrid growth capital. So it's basically acting like a corporate finance advisor that supports them in raising growth capital from impact-oriented investors. And so far, we have supported more than 50 social enterprises, mainly based in Europe, to raise more than 25 million euros from impact-oriented investors. And our core competence is really building bridges between social enterprises and impact-oriented investors. And yeah, it's really a great pleasure to be here today and to have the honor to chair this forum and really present you great ideas of the social enterprises that you will see in a second, and that I think is really the core of the conference. Before that, we will do a brief round of introduction of my co-panelists here and the experts from different fields, as you will see. So really a renewed panel of experts that will be able to provide valuable feedback also to the social enterprises. That may be briefly to the setup of the round. Maybe just a few words from my side. So Markus Freiburg, from a background business administration economics, worked long time with McKinsey. When I then got to know Ashoka, that you potentially know, the world leading organization to support social enterprises, and was really fascinated by the way social enterprises tackle societal means with entrepreneurial means. And now in it for, I think, almost 10 years, and decided to co-found with Ashoka FASE as a trusted advisor for social enterprises to support them in raising funds. And as I said, we did that in more than 50 cases so far successfully, raising more than 25 million euros. We started our activities in Germany, but then with the support of the European Commission, also expanded to Austria, the Benelux region and CE, and are currently now preparing to build a pan-European open pipeline, and also working with selected non-European based social enterprises. And that's really the core of our activities. Apart from that, we are currently also setting up a matching facility, about 20 million euros, partly guaranteed from the European Commission. And we're also very active in ecosystem building and consulting the European Commission as part of the GECES group on social entrepreneurship and social finance, and also very active in the European Venture Philanthropy Association. And yeah, really looking forward to the joint session today. And it's really a great pleasure also to welcome these four renewed colleagues on the panel. And the idea is that each and everybody has 5 minutes to introduce herself. And let's start with that. So I hand over to Deertz from GZ.
Yes, welcome also from my side. I'm Helle Deertz from Germany. I'm working for the GIZ. It's the Deutsche Gesellschaft für Internationale Zusammenarbeit. It's very long term of organization. So we are advising the Federal Ministry of Development Cooperation in terms of different sectors and themes, and I'm in the project of the global project of inclusion of persons with disabilities, and I'm working now for the GIZ since 5 years, beginning with the education sector in a research project where we have had projects and a study field in Malawi and Guatemala, which was quite interesting. And then I turned over to the global project on inclusion of persons with disabilities. And of course, education is only one sector we are advising. We are not only advising the ministry, we are also implementing all the projects that the ministry is giving us the budget for. And then we try to support and convince our colleagues all over the world. We have more than 200 partner countries where the GIZ has its office. And I also had the opportunity last year to go to West Africa for an kind of internship and doing workshops there as well. in an education program. So it was very interesting for me to go as a person with a disability, which I'm born with, in a fragile context country. Yeah, and now I'm very delighted to be here. It's my first time being a jury member, and I'm very delighted that I'm invited here for the Startup Forum. And as we in our projects of global project of inclusion of persons with disabilities are also looking for innovative approaches and all this, and working with the digital sector as well, together with GIZ colleagues, it's very interesting for me to have this view. And I already have seen the presentations, the PowerPoint presentations of the different presenters we have here, of the different companies, and it looks very, very interesting. So I'm looking very forward to hear the presentations and being part of the team here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Helle, for the kind introduction. Matthias.
Well, good morning. It's such a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Matthias Reisinger, and I'm such a big fan of the Zero Project and the SL Foundation from the very beginning, so it's a great honor to be here as an expert in this wonderful session. And it's amazing. I think we see that the top projects out of over 460 applications, so it's really exciting. I'm very much looking forward to that. In my previous life, I was an entrepreneur myself. 10 years ago, I co-founded the Impact Hub in Vienna, and I was the managing director for 10 years. Impact Hubs are places where social innovators go to realize their ideas. It's a place where you go and you meet your peers, you find a community, you find the support that you need and the knowledge and the know-how to realize your projects. There's a network of over 100 Impact Hubs around the world, and the headquarters is here in Vienna, so that's very exciting for us as well. I was constantly confronted with the idea, how can we make it easier for social innovators and innovators as such to realize their ideas? It's hard everywhere, but how can we make it easier? So that's why I decided to change my role. 1 year ago, I moved into the, let's call it public sector. So now I work for AWS, it's called Austria Wirtschaftsservice. It's the public funding and innovation agency of the Republic of Austria. So what we do is we give, amongst other things, grants to innovative projects and organizations. And so my job is to see how can we make these support structures even more powerful. And one thing that we achieved is we started a new funding call just very recently. It's called AWS Creative Impact. And it gives public funding to a lot of innovative projects, but also to projects that have a social impact. And that's really new in Austria. We didn't have so many calls that really fund those projects as well. So we're really excited to have a very dedicated offer. But even before we funded innovators, so I'm happy to see that two out of the projects that we see today have also been supported by the AWS. So yeah, I'm very excited to see the projects. I'm happy to be here and give my feedback, and I'm looking forward to the projects and their pitches. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Matthias. Great to have you on the panel. Ariane, Waldvogel.
Good morning to all of you. My name is Ariane Waldvogel. Just a quick background. All my career I've been a developer, whatever that means. Basically, I've been working for the UN and NGOs and for the Swiss Development Corporation, so international corporation around the world, on various projects, but it always came back to helping the private sector in one way or another. So that's why my social enterprise sensibility being here today. Currently, I'm the director of a Victimis Fondation, which is a private Geneva-based foundation, and we work on 3 themes. One is fighting gender-based violence, and I stress gender in the generic terms of it, fighting violation of fundamental human rights, and what is more interesting now in today's discussion, we also work with disability issues, whichever angle we are talking about in disability. I think that the driving mindset that our foundation has is to help people acquire or reacquire their human dignity. That's the driving force of our approach. And we support projects, but also social enterprise. And sometimes one goes towards the other, because I think one thing for us it's very important is sustainability of any actions or initiative that is being taken, because I've seen too many times sometimes projects where things are going well, and suddenly if the support is not there anymore or is diminishing, the whole initiative is collapsing, and the first person to be affected by that are the beneficiaries or people who we're trying to help. So I always try to look at how any initiative can sustain itself one way or another by itself. So I really look forward to today's discussions and the presentation. Thank you.
Ariane, thanks so much. Great to have you on the panel. And last, but by no means least, Holger.
Thank you. So, thanks for having me. What brings me, why do I sit here? I've seen both sides of the table, basically. So, I worked in internet and tech startups after university as a product manager, and later I switched sides and managed a startup accelerator in Berlin, where I'm living, and worked as a startup coach. But in the same time, I co-founded wheelmap.org, a map to find and report wheelchair accessible places, like stepless access to coffee shops, restaurants, libraries, schools. And I did this on the side while working in the startup industry with a good friend of mine who was using an electric wheelchair. And I learned a lot, and I didn't quit my day job. But after a couple of years, after 6 years or so, I switched sides again, and I'm now doing this full-time as the chairman of the organization, Sozialhelden, its name. And I'm excited to be here, and I see the entrepreneurs are very nervous, I guess, and I don't want to be in the way of all the pitches.
Yeah, Holger, thanks so much. So I think, as you can easily see from the introductions, we have an excellent panel and with very diverse backgrounds. So having foundational backgrounds, public money, but also public banking backgrounds, and also very important, the social entrepreneurial element. So I think that's also a good indication what we usually see in the social entrepreneurship scene, that it's really all about co-creation and the interaction of different actors coming from different planets, almost to say, to really build coalitions that can support the social enterprises in scaling their social impact. And now let's turn to the social enterprises. I think that's really the reason why you got up this morning and came to our great session, to see great solutions, live pitching. And it's really a pleasure to have 4 social enterprises here that really can present their great inclusive solutions. And they have been selected from more than 400 cases, so it was a tough competition so far. And just to briefly introduce to the format of the session, each entrepreneur will have 15 minutes, and the idea is that there will be an 8-minute presentation, and afterwards there are 7 minutes for Q&A. And we will start with the Q&A from the panel, but then also up for questions from the plenary. So if you have questions that you want to ask or feedback that you want to share with the social entrepreneurs, please feel free to do so. And we also have a timekeeper that will remind the social entrepreneurs of the time, so 8-minute presentation and a 7-minute Q&A. So let's start with the first social enterprise, SignTime, Cymex. And actually I have joined quite a few startup competitions so far. I think it's a great pleasure that it's the first one that I see where actually the presentation is done in sign language and then transported into spoken language, which I think is also a very good signal for our inclusive setup. And it's a great pleasure to welcome Claudia Schweinzer, who will present SignTime.
Hello, everyone. I'm deaf, as you can see, and I work for SignTime. We've developed Cymex, and this is what I'm going to present today. You can see it says here Cymex. This is the sign for Cymex, and I'll tell you what it's all about. I'm sure all of you know Google Translate. You can type in a word in English, for instance, and get the translation in German. And SignMix works the same way. You have a written word and you get the sign for it, signed by an avatar. Deaf people often have difficulty reading texts or don't like to read them, and it's easy for them to receive the information in sign language. So SignMix has a database, a very large database today, which is also a learning database. So if you have a sentence like, I am an old man and I'm walking my poodle, and how do you sign poodle? When that's not clear, when you don't find, for example, the sign poodle in the database because it's not there yet, the database itself knows that it can also use the sign dog because it's better than to have nothing. Or the same goes, for example, the coffee, mocha, you know? How do you sign mocha? It's like a small dark coffee. And then you can have that translation, like a small black coffee, and the database helps that way. Our company has a team of hearing and deaf employees who work together. You can see us here on the picture. But we also work together with external people from Germany, from England, from Spain, deaf translators who will send us their sign language videos. We will render them as an avatar and send that video with the avatar back to the clients. Today, with modern technology, that's not a problem at all because we're all connected worldwide. Here you can see a long list of possible applications for the sign language avatar. For example, public transport announcements. You all know when you sit in the underground and suddenly it stops and it just doesn't continue. And then you have these announcements via the loudspeakers, but deaf people can't hear these, so they get no information at all. You could imagine having an app on your phone where you can receive these informations in sign language. For example, it says, okay, leave the underground and take bus number 5, for instance. This would be a way to get to this information. With medication, you know, when you are ill, when you're sick, and you want to take some pill, there's always this package leaflet, which is really complicated to read. And I would like to receive that information in my language, in sign language. Because I want to have this information for the pill that I am taking, and I don't necessarily want to share this information with other people, which pill I'm taking. And this information is like really sensitive when I have to go to hospital or something, yeah? And I want to get the full information in these medical contexts. And maybe you know that these package leaflet texts are highly standardized. A lot of the sentences are pretty much the same. So when you have translated part of this text, then often it's enough to just change a few words and you can translate more texts. So this enables a very efficient translation of a lot of texts. And it's important for deaf people to get the same information as hearing people. In a museum, for instance, when you go to a museum, it would be lovely to get the information in sign language so that I can also know all the things that are written there. But what if, for example, if there is a guided tour in sign language, but I don't have time, I want to come another day, then I can use digital museum guides and get the information in sign language when I need it. But of course, we don't want to replace human translators. In future, there will always be the two working together in order to have full access to all information for all deaf people. A human translator can only achieve so much in one day's work. They can only translate a limited number of texts. So we need the technology alongside to translate more. Our vision is to develop SIMEX, to continue developing SIMEX and to make it better and better. So, for example, that the quality of the translation evolves and gets better and better. And also to translate more sign languages all over the world. For example, we also want to adapt it to the different cultures. For example, you know how Spanish people have a completely different body language from other countries, and we want to also implement that in the sign avatar. You have the sign language avatar. It also creates work opportunities for deaf translators. Deaf people who can earn their own money, for example, with the sign language avatar. In the future, deaf translators can use the avatar themselves and give videos with the avatar to their clients. So this would be a win-win situation for all. For inclusive, for an accessible world for the deaf. Deaf people at home who want to send messages with the avatar can do this free of charge. Like, hello, how are you? How are you feeling? I want to send such a message, but maybe I'm not looking too good today. I've got a pimple or something. I don't want to show my own face. So I can just use the face of the avatar to ask a question in sign language. Hearing people, on the other hand, who can't sign at all, but who know a deaf person and they want to send a message to them, they want to ask them how they are in their own language, they can also do that via the avatar. And the deaf people will be happy to see a message in their own language. This way, the communication can work better. And this use will be free of charge. How did we finance the development of the avatar? By EU grants, also by research grants, because there was a lot of research involved in developing the avatar. It's not just, it's not an easy thing to translate. It's difficult to make the avatar look human and not robotic. So there's a lot of research that goes into this area, how to do that. So we'd be happy if maybe somebody else, some of you would be interested to invest in it. So, and also we get, so we have private investors, and also we've already sold videos with the avatar and received cash from that. But of course, it's not all that easy. We face a lot of difficulties. For example, it's not like translating German to English. With sign language, there are a lot of differences that you have to respect. You have to have the right body movement. There's a lot of aspects that are really important. And we want to improve the product so that all of that is really respected. We want to get better and better at our translations. We must get better. And maybe sometimes in the future, you yourself can use the avatar. The goal is that this is really easy to use. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Hey, Claudia, thanks so much for the great presentation, which was really, really great. Before I open up for the panel, I would start with two questions from my side. The first one is, can you maybe talk a bit about the proof of concept and maybe share a few cases that you have worked with, so I know on the TV side or with some municipalities, and maybe also quote some of... Oh, sorry. So could you talk a bit about the proof of concept? So some case studies, maybe I know that on the TV side or with some municipalities.
What do you mean by the proof of concept?
Proof of concept, so where that SignTime was actually applied in practice. and also maybe share a bit how many people you already reached. So about the proof of concept is the first question. And the second question is regarding your ask. Can you maybe a bit more specific what you actually need and maybe what people in the plenary could also help you with? Is it on the financial side or is it access to clients? If you could talk about that, that would be appreciated. Thanks.
To the first question. In our company, we have deaf employees, and that's very important for our concept. The deaf employees are in the team, and we're still developing. We know that the avatar is not human, yeah, and it will never be a human, of course. But still, it's important to have the sign language expression, the body expression, like a human, yeah? There's a lot of things that we are not aware of when we sign. When a human signs, it's just right. But to give life to the avatar, so to say, that is the challenge, that they behave like a human to the look, yeah? For us people, we don't have to think about it, we just do it. But to get that to the avatar, that needs a lot of research and a lot of time for this research. So that means it needs money, of course. And so we need investors and we need developers. This is a very important point, and it is very important that we get feedback from the deaf people that they are involved. It's also very interesting for hearing people, but they have a different view, they have a different look on the avatar. Two deaf people who are signing with each other, for example, it's not polite to watch them all the time if you're, as a hearing person, are interested. But with the avatar, it's not a problem. You can watch it as long as you like. And then you can also be more open when, the next time you see two deaf people on the street. So I think there's a lot of advantages for hearing and for deaf people. And the most important thing is to get information as quickly as possible. Without the avatar, it will never be possible to translate all of the information that there is. So it will take until our grandchildren are here, or our great-grandchildren, until all of the information would be translated otherwise. Yeah? And we want to have it now. We don't want to have to wait for 100 years. So we want it now.
Okay, thanks so much. Holger?
Yeah. Thank you very much for the great presentation. Just to be super clear, you said it's an automatic translation. So I send written text and then I get a video from the avatar back. And what I don't really understand is like what, yeah?
It's half automatic. So that means the computer supports me as a human so that I can work more quickly, yeah? We are not at the full automatic translation yet, yeah? That's somewhere in the future. Okay. The important thing is that now I get the support from the computer.
So from this example with the change the word mocha to coffee, this is the software bit basically, but then there are sign language interpreters who do the conversion basically. Because my question would be about grammar, which I've heard is extremely complex and not as easy as, you know, English, German or something.
Yes,
and this
true.
is like 5 to 10 years away or something. So how well does it work today? Is it like short sentences in grammar, or is it always this manual process?
Yeah, they need humans to do it at the moment, and it depends on the context of the text. For example, there's a German word that is Bank, and you have to know if it is a bank you sit on or if it is a bank where you go to get money. And it's a completely different sign for bank and bank, and in German you would not see the difference in the word itself.
So it's me who has to make the decision which one is meant in that context.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. Was there questions? Yeah.
First of all, thanks for the presentation. For me, where I'm not clear is how do you access SIMAX? Because we're talking about enterprises, but individuals, so how do you access the application itself? And related to that is, what is your plan? Because you mentioned that for individuals it would be free. So in terms of business plan, how do you foresee for the project, the initiative to be sustainable?
Yeah. As to your first question, what was the first question? I'm sorry. Can you repeat the first question?
It was how to access the SIMAX.
Yeah. Thank you. It is something about SIMAX that we have developed, but at the moment you have to buy a license and to buy it. But if deaf people can use it at the moment if they buy the license. And if they can use it to earn money with it, and it is independent of our company. So if they have the license, they can use the system, they can use it to produce avatar videos. But for the private use, it is without cost for the users. And we want to do that, to give it to the people, to use it for free, so that they can get in contact with deaf people, hearing people can get in contact with deaf people can use it to communicate with hearing people. And it should be without any charge. But we have to have somebody who has who knows how to use the system to translate complete texts into a fluent sign language. You need to be an interpreter to understand how to use it to make really long texts in a fluent sign language that is easy to understand for deaf people.
Okay, thanks a lot for answering. I think we have time for one last comment.
Yeah, because we're running out of time, I cannot ask my questions, but thank you so much for your presentation. It's more like an offer. I saw that we as AWS already supported you in the past, but I could see that there's still some programs that would fit where we could maybe look at if we could provide you with public funding. So the offer is that we sit together and see if this is something that could be applicable for you.
Thanks so much, Matthias. It's a great offer. So let's give a big hand of applause to Claudia and SignTime.
I love you all.
Thanks so much. Sorry, unfortunately, time is always running, so we need to skip to the schedule. And we'll turn to Irisbond and Eduardo Jauregui. And yeah, really looking forward to his presentation. So the same rules, 8-minute presentation and 7 minutes Q&A. It's all yours, Eduardo.
Have the pointer to... Yeah. That's for that. Thank you. Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Eduardo Jauregui. I'm the CEO and the founder of Irisbond. In the previous presentation, you mentioned that the Spanish body language is different. I'm Spanish, so I suppose that my body language could help to communicate better my pitch. So, according to United Nations, communication is a fundamental human right. And did you know that there are more than 50 million people all around the world that could not communicate independently by themselves? People suffering cerebral palsy or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, they need assistive technology to communicate and to interact with the environment. And within the different assistive technologies, eye gaze is one of the most reliable and accurate options. Actually, the state of the art on eye tracking means that you need a device, an eye tracking device connected to the computer, which could run only in Windows. That means that if you are an iOS user, you could not use eye tracking. Or imagine that you will want to run an Android application with the gaze. You could not do that. Or even imagine that you want to make your voice mobile. I mean, when you go outside, when you travel, you want to still be communicating. So in Irisbond, we have built first world eye tracking platform that is multi-platform, which means that could operate in Android, in iOS, and in Windows, and in any kind of devices such as PCs, laptops, or smartphones. Our approach to the market is focused on the assistive and alternative communication market. We already have more than 2,000 users all over the world that are talking with the eyes thanks to Irisbond. The access to the market is through leaders or manufacturers on assistive and alternative communication that integrate our solution into their corporate product. So they leverage the solution into the distribution network all over the world. Actually, this year, the Spanish government, the health minister, has approved the eye tracking technology and will be funded by the Spanish government. So this is a big opportunity for us as the only Spanish manufacturer on eye tracking in Spain. So as a company, we have been awarded of several prizes, such as the Zero Project for Innovative Practices in 2016, or recently the ITC for All for the ITU. So let me share with you what we really do in a small video. 2 years ago in the Mobile World Congress, together with the GSMA and Twitter, we show an application that enables to control the Twitter with the eyes. And that is the result.
Hola, soy Alberto Pajarillo y sí, yo soy el que tuiteó el chiste que ha molestado a tanta gente. Déjame decirte algo. Hace 2 años sufrí un accidente que me dejó inmovilizado a excepción de labios, ojos y párpados. Básicamente estoy cautivo en mi propio cuerpo, incomunicado y condenado al silencio. 2 largos años en los que he visto cambiar el mundo sin poder comentar ni compartir lo que pienso.
There's a mistake.
Pero lo peor ha sido no poder reírme. De nada. Ni de mí mismo. Algo que siempre había hecho. Pero he vuelto. Gracias a un móvil, mis ojos y la tecnología puedo volver a escribir y comunicarme. Y he pensado, qué mejor forma de volver que con sentido del humor. Gracias por hacerlo posible. He vuelto.
So this is an example of what actually technology could provide. So according to recent studies, market studies, the global eye tracking market is expected to grow in the next year to $1.4 billion worldwide. There are some more active or interesting markets, which are automotive or research or healthcare or retail, by example. Given with the autonomous car, the driver could operate and could manage the car entertainment, and the gaze will be one input that could be used for that. Or even for market research, using the gaze to track the gaze to understand the human behavior will improve the market research analysis as well. So there are huge opportunities in many, many verticals. So saying that, which is our growing strategy? Take into account that if we focus in many verticals, you need to invest a lot of money and resources, and you need to understand very well each market to do it well there. So and you could lose your focus. On the other hand, big players as Google or Samsung or Microsoft, they are investing on accessibility to make their platforms as accessible as possible. But not because only they want to make their platforms compatible for disabled people, but even more because they realize that making this platform accessible, they're improving the usability experience for the mass market. So there is a huge opportunity for these big players. Actually, we are working with these players in some projects, with Microsoft, with Samsung. We are running some projects together with them and in conversation with Google. So the strategy is to leverage on these big players to penetrate into the market and to generate awareness of eye tracking in the overall market. And so who are we? We are a team of 20 people passionate about doing very disruptive technology with a really social impact. So we believe that what we do and how we do improves quality of life of many people. We have engineers working in Boston with the MIT to add artificial intelligence to the eye tracking field. We are also working in assistive communication market with the leaders to penetrate into the market and also in conversation, as I said, with global companies. So our ambition is to grow, but even more is to create a new way for humans to communicate with the environment using the gaze as a natural means of interaction. Many thanks.
Thanks so much, Eduardo. Very impressive. Can you maybe share a bit about your proof of concept already? So how many revenues have you already, let's say, realized, if any? And maybe also explain a bit what is your USP compared to competitive solutions?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we started the company 7 years ago. Now revenues is about €1 million in basically an assistive communication market. So we have this market that we believe is a niche market that could grow, but it's a niche market. So comparing to our competitors, as I said, we built a new solution on eye tracking that enables to integrate with different operating systems that nobody has actually. And even more, we are integrating eye tracking here. Without the need of any hardware, an external hardware, we can track the eyes of a mobile phone. Yet it's a prototype, but with our current collaboration with MIT, we believe that we are going to get very good results soon. An example, Google has a platform which is called Chromebook. It's very, very dedicated for special education. This Chromebook operates in Android, such a kind of Android operating system. There is not eye tracking for it. So now there is a big opportunity, and we are in conversation with Google to integrate the eye tracking for the Chromebook, for the massive schools for inclusive education.
Okay, thanks. And regarding competitors?
Sorry?
Regarding competitors, or are there other comparable solutions?
Yeah, there are, of course. We are not only in the world. There are not many. I mean, we are about 3-4 companies in the world that they are doing eye tracking in a professional way. The main competitor is Tobii, is one Swedish company, a big company that they are doing pretty well. But we have a technology that is as good as they have. And we are penetrating into the market very hard with leveraging our strategy with big players.
Okay, thanks a lot. So further questions from the panel?
So thank you very much for this great presentation. I'm very impressed about this. I have 2 questions. One is concerning disability. I don't know if you already said it. I think no, but correct me if I'm wrong. So when we have persons with disability like me, for example, with cerebral palsy, and the person isn't that able to control the eyes that fluently, is the software program adapted to the body of the person who is using the program, and adapts the the rapid way of the eye tracking towards the program? That's one question. And the other question is, you said that you were that you have more than 2,000 users all over the world. And me, as working in the development cooperation, I would be interested in if you are only working with Europe or good countries that are well prepared and have a good infrastructure, or do you also cooperate already with developing countries and other continents? Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. So the first one is, of course, we track the eyes and we do it very precisely. And so we can control a computer with the eyes precisely. But for somebody that has a disability, it's not enough. So what we have to provide is a communication way. So we integrate our eye tracking platform with communication softwares. If we go to ALS people, by example, that they have no cognitive impairment, so they can just talk and they can just communicate with the computer with this kind of software as a keyboard that they could type the letters with the eyes and they can talk with that. If we go, for example, for cerebral palsy, where we are talking about children with cognitive impairment, so we are working with some programs that follow a learning curve. So first we need to understand if this boy has capacity of communicating. And after that, we need to teach the gaze to build the communication way. So there is a learning curve with some kind of games that teach them to engage with the gaze, and at the end they can communicate fully with the gaze. And the last question, we started operating in non-emerging countries. I mean, in emerging countries, in Spain, Latin America, these countries, because our competitors were not operating there. But we realized as our technology was improving and we were engaging bigger players in the world, so now we are leveraging to northern countries, US, Canada, Europe. And we are penetrating the market there through the distribution networks that our partners have.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. It's very impressive. You kind of half answered my question already, but maybe not the second half. So in the beginning, I asked myself, why is it necessary to have a software component and a hardware component? And now you kind of went in the direction and said, well, you tried to integrate it in devices because there's a camera almost everywhere, right? Because hardware is expensive, especially if you dedicate it to a niche market. It's hard to reach like large numbers so that the price point comes down. So could you maybe share a little bit about your future perspective? If it's possible to integrate it in a device and then have all the applications be manageable via eye tracking, is it still necessary for you to go into hardware?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's necessary now because the maturity of the technology is not enough to rely just in a webcam, in a device without any external eye tracker. The current state of the art of eye tracking needs an infrared light and a camera to track precisely the eyes. So with this kind of devices, the hardware, we can get accuracies as 0.3 degrees, which is extremely precise. No? With webcam solutions, we cannot get that because we don't have any external infrared or whatever. So we have to rely on artificial intelligence with neural networks and this kind of issues. So we are working on this very actively. Actually, we are getting results about 5 degrees, which is times worse than infrared. Right. But it's very promising that steps we are getting. And in the near future, we see that we are going to replace completely the hardware. And any device, my vision is that any device in the world could include this technology, this software that enable us to communicate with the gaze. In fact, we ambition to provide intelligence to the machines to interact naturally with the humans.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to say 7 years sounds long, but doing hardware and software with 5 people is incredibly impressive. My question is, how do you sell this? Is it a medical device? How hard is it to sell this kind of solution? So would you recommend going into the assistive technology thing, or just maybe share a story on like how hard is it to get it?
So this is the board of directors. We have 20 people in the company. Yes, it's a hard market because sometimes it's hard to make the people understand that there is a business there. And it has to be a business. We need to earn money and to make bigger the company, to invest and make it bigger. So sometimes it's hard to make people understand that you are supplying something that improves the quality of life, but we need also to make money from that. So it's hard, but I would say it's very, we are very proud to be there as well, because what we are doing is changing life of people. And we believe that as we are going to improve the technology, we could expand this technology to more people, not only in rich countries, mature countries, but if we get at the end to make the technology being embedded in any device, in any country, in South Africa, in anywhere, people could communicate with the eyes. And there is a need of communicating with the eyes for many people in the world.
Okay, thanks so much. So unfortunately, time is already up. So thanks again, Eduardo, for the great presentation. And let's give a big hand of applause to Eduardo and Irisbond. So let's turn to the third social enterprise and welcome Christof Götz on the stage for Brain Hero. So same rules, 8 minutes presentation and 7 minutes Q&A.
Okay. Well, thank you for, we just have to start my timer, so. Right. Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Christof Götz. I'm actually, my background is project management and business administration and kind of computer science. And what I'm showing you today is actually a project, where's actually the slide? Oh, it's here, okay. And I'm showing you a project today which is actually more kind of neuroscience related. And the reason for being here and for having this is actually my daughter. So my daughter was diagnosed with autism when she was 4.5. And as a kind of a computer guy, I was always looking for some kind of a way to help her and to support her and to enable her to become and to have her own life, so that she's maybe when she's growing up and being an adult person to have an independent life and can sustain herself. So as a parent, you always think of, okay, what can I do and what will happen if I'm not there anymore? So that's the reason why we came up with Brain Hero. Sorry, where's it? Sorry, the clicker is not really responding. Okay, here we are. So what's our mission? Our mission is to help people with impairments, with neurological impairments, to become independent in life. And where we start, as for this kind of journey we started is, we start with autism to be the first neurological impairment we are looking into it. So what actually is, oh sorry, other way around. So what is actually autism and how much is it actually affected, and how many people are affected? Actually, if you're looking into the real numbers, some say, okay, it's 1%, so that's the World Health Organization, some say it's 1.6. We actually estimate it's around 2% because we're actually missing lots of people out that we don't diagnose. So what is autism? Autism is a social, it's an impairment that comes and you can see it with a lack of social interaction, sometimes a lack of eye contact. These people have kind of meltdowns, so they are overwhelmed by their surrounding. And when you get the diagnosis, the issue is, what can I do for my child? And you go and have maybe behavior therapy, so that's the kind of recommendation. Some even give kind of medication to keep the child kind of calm. But all these things are quite time consuming. So if you go for behavior therapy, it's about 40 hours a week you need to support the child in a personal therapy that is usually not paid by insurance companies. So what do we do to help this whole kind of process? So what does Brain Hero do actually? So what we do is we created a so-called mobile neurofeedback game. So neurofeedback is something you play with your brain waves. So what we developed is a mobile EEG that you can use at home very easily. And with this EEG, you train certain brain areas that are very key to the child's development. So we found that there are certain areas of the brain of the autistic child that help them to increase concentration levels, increase their relaxation capabilities, so avoiding meltdowns, and this actually is resulting in an increase of their social interaction. So they actually are able to communicate more with their other children in their class, and they're also able to concentrate more and learn more. So they are actually able to get more into their learning process to become independent in their life. So that was the beginning. That's something we developed. So it works with, as I said, a mobile EEG, and it works with a regular tablet. So you play that game. And what we're doing next is actually we developed this further. So we found that by analyzing the whole brain, you can actually look into other neurological impairments like ADHD. You can look into very specific ones that are sometimes in anxiety. There you have kind of different areas of the brain where you have weaknesses. So what we're doing is we analyze, so we develop this EEG further so that you have a full EEG of the whole brain, and then you can identify weaknesses and constrain these weaknesses very specifically. And that's where we're aiming to have a personalized home therapy that goes along with a therapy use. So where are we? What are the results so far? So we had 24 children already in our tests, including my daughter, of course. She was the first one to play. At my daughter, we saw increase of the concentration duration levels from initially 10 minutes. So she had to go out of the school lesson every 10 minutes. So she's staying for the whole school lesson. She can actually listen to presentations up to 2 hours. She hasn't got any meltdowns anymore, and her social interaction has improved. We had a boy, he's now 20 actually, so I still say he's not, he was just turned 20, and he was non-verbal when he started, had no eye contact with his parents, and he established, after 3 months, he established first eye contact ever with his parents. And he's now actually, started to interact, so you can actually tell him what to do, and he's responding in a yes or no manner, and even have 2 3-word sentences. So these are actually quite encouraging results. And we also have other children where we see that they're increasing in concentration levels. So our goal is actually to get a better understanding of the brain and make this therapy accessible to also other neurological impairments, and that's where we're doing research at the moment. Where we stand is this is actually a consumer-grade EEG at the moment, so we have passed CE testing. We're going actually to achieve that goal. We're going into the medical route. So as you said about medical device, this is going to be a medical therapy system. So this EEG is something we're going to medical certify by the end of the year. We have to also prove in clinical trials that the therapy is actually working. So that is something that we're planning to start by summer this year, and we'll have the first studies ready by mid next year. So financing so far, I as a family and founder, we put quite a lot of money into it. Luckily, we were also funded by the Vienna Business Agency and by AWS. We won a little bit of awards, and actually we're looking at the moment, we're in the middle of a financial round by mid of this year to finance actually the medical certification, and we're also looking for other funding options in terms of research grants. So that's where we're going for the moment. Right. So thank you very much.
So Christof, thanks so much for this very impressive presentation. Maybe one question, you mentioned that there's still a funding need, if I understand correctly, around 1 million. So can you maybe, let's say, elaborate a bit on what this money is needed for? Since you mentioned the certification already.
Yeah, well, we are in the process of medical certification already, but we also want to start the research process to, we started in a small scale to identify, okay, how can we personalize the therapy? Also looking into other neurological impairments. So this kind of research project is something we want to start. So that's one part of the funding. The other part of the funding is to further develop the EEG. So this is now a 4-channel EEG. You need for a full size EEG, you need 24 channels. And also the hardware still needs to change that it is able to run all the labs that is required to pass medical certification. And that's basically where we need the money from, and we will basically increase the money with public grants to make that in total happen.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. I was very happy to see that AWS is already supporting you. And it's beautiful stories, so it's very promising. And at the same time, one question arose. So essentially, if I put it simply, you are scanning the brain, amongst other things. Can you please elaborate a little bit about security, privacy, and data protection, especially as technology advances? How can you ensure that nobody from the outside can, in the future, read one of the
it's actually very key also when you're becoming medical certified that you're looking into this aspect. So we have actually 3 data pools where we're storing the data. So obviously we need the EEG raw data to analyze. We're analyzing actually also the progress when the children is playing at home. And this is stored, the EEG data is stored in a separate database actually in Amsterdam. So we have a secure cloud server there, which is encrypted. We have a second part of where we also run surveys. So to see and track progress, we run surveys with the parents. So this is another piece of information. And the third piece of information is another, and they're all on European servers and it's all encrypted. And we also run on basically this profile that we need to actually link this to the data to say, okay, who's owning actually the data is something that is very tiny and little, and this is stored actually separately. And if the people basically say, okay, we don't want to use the service anymore, and we want to remove all the personal details, and we can remove that, and basically all the we have still data to do our research, but it's not personalized anymore.
Okay. Thank you.
Ariane?
Yeah, thank you very much for that presentation. Yeah, working much more in developing countries, I see a lot of potential as well beyond developed countries. 2 questions to that. The user is really at home level only, or have you worked with certain institutions who work that part of their different exercise at the beginning of a day with the children as well? And also the other question is there a language issue to the brain game?
We, in terms of, we don't use only home. So actually we got quite an interesting feedback on this conference also that basically there are organizations who like to integrate this into their kind of, there's a living apartment where people with issues are actually working, living together. So this could be, of course, a use case to have basically devices there. So not only home, and actually the full channel EEG is actually aimed to use it as a therapist have to use it. So there will basically maintaining and managing this whole process and helping also the children at home or the parents at home to achieve that, because you need to play it every 2 days for about 15 minutes. And also this kind of incentive is something that the therapist can do. But yeah, as I said, we see a lot of other use cases and other ideas on how to integrate this into a daily routine, yeah. And for the language, sorry, it was designed multi-language from the very beginning. So you can change already languages, and as we in Europe, we already have a lot of languages. And for the non-verbals, we tested this and created also, we made workshops with non-verbals, which is not easy actually. We did it with the technical university and tried to make this game as understandable as possible. So we also run tests on that.
Thanks, Holger.
Again, I appreciate you do hardware and software at the same time, as you said before, and your unique selling proposition is that it's an at-home mobile device. That's what I understood.
And it's going to be a medical device.
And a medical device. So, but what I maybe, I'm not so much from the field, so maybe can you elaborate more on neurofeedback therapy in general, because it sounds a bit new agey. I saw it in hackerspaces, people play around with this. So maybe you can give us more context on how scientific is it, or
Yes.
who else is doing something like this? Give me more.
Yeah, we looked into, actually when we started it was kind of dull, to be honest. So we actually, because when you're a parent, you just try everything. And we went to a couple of studies, and we found 18 studies with autism and neurofeedback. And basically we put it in a spreadsheet and say, okay, what kind of therapy or what kind of waves and signals is required to make a change. And it was actually looking into social interaction. And then we just started, and I was not actually expecting much. So, and then we saw these changes in concentration and so on. However, there are also enough studies saying this is all not working. So it's a very much trial and error field. However, and we also, I had also people saying, okay, this is just placebo, it's not working. So, and this is why we employed actually now a lot of people. We have 2 neuroscientists, we have psychologists, and we have a lot of evidence. Actually, with AWS, they gave us a hard time to actually look exactly into this, because at the beginning they say, okay, well, this is all voodoo. But now we're in a field where we say, okay, this is something that we can prove, and we know how to design the studies to make this really proof. And that's why we focused on autism only for the beginning. So because when you're looking into general neurofeedback, they promise you everything. And actually what I found, I have other people who are autistic, and they're saying, we tried that and this was not working. And then they told me what they did, and yeah, well, they did it wrong. And and it could also be that in some cases it doesn't work. But so far, we had a couple of children in tests with ADHD, for example, trying our method, and there was no impact. So that we said, okay, now we have to understand autism fully before we move on. But for that, we see that there is a way of proving that.
Thanks. So one last question from Helle.
Yes, thank you so much for this presentation. I've shared the view of all the others, and you already answered many questions of me as well. But concerning the child, I would be interested in the way. Is there a recommendation in the pedagogical way? How do you get the child to that he has fun to play it? How can you get the child motivated to play it when you are looking at the world? He is some kind locked in and having its own world.
Yeah, so this is actually really a challenge. We are still designing alternative games. So we have the high-performance children who are really very smart and everything. So they get easily bored at the moment. So because it's just at the moment, it's really a jump-and-run game, very simple. For the non-verbals, actually it works very well. And they are challenged basically. They have to challenge their score. So the last score they had, they have to challenge that, and they get rewards. We're sending out certificates to say, okay, you achieved something. So that works very well. And on the high performance thing, this is something we're still exploring. So this is over the next couple of months there will be new games. So to keep them motivated, to keep them going on, and we're also thinking of some kind of competition so that these children can compete to each other. So, but it's not easy, and it's something we're working on.
Yes, thanks so much, Christof. Unfortunately, time is up again, so let's give a big hand of applause to Christof and Brain Hero. So let's turn to the last, but by no means least, social enterprise VR therapies and Rebecca Jill. Already
Hello.
there. Warm welcome. The floor is yours.
How do I use it? Hello, my name is Rebecca Gill. I'm a learning disabilities nurse from England. I set up VR Therapies last year, which is a social enterprise for children with special needs and adults with disabilities. It's been a crazy year, and we've already won quite a few awards, which is amazing. That one's the Great British Entrepreneur Award, which won for inspirational spirit. One of my proudest ones was at Accessible Europe, where I can see you too, you're in the photo. So yeah, it's been brilliant, the support we've had. My background is all learning disabilities, anything neurological. I spent quite a few years in brain injury rehabilitation. I've worked with all ages and all disabilities. So these are some of the photos of what I do. So I take the virtual reality headsets out to people and we use them for a therapeutic value and their well-being. So we've got ones where you can go swimming with dolphins, you can go and explore the world, and then there's also ones that help with autism and social and communicational difficulties or phobias. There's so many different benefits and options out there that it's what really inspired me to do this. In England, traditional therapies are becoming harder to access. So if you want to see a physiotherapist or go and have hydrotherapy, there's long waiting lists, unless you can go private, which most people with disabilities can't because they're often not on benefits. So this is what made me really passionate about trying to bring the therapies to the community, but also the latest advancements in medical and therapeutic technology. So if we're still using fax machines, getting VR on the NHS is going to take a while. So I brought a few headsets and went out to the homes that I used to work at and the healthcare units and had such an amazing response that it's just spiraled since then. So with the medical benefits, we've found that there's so many studies and research happening now around the world, and from reducing chronic pain and anxiety, supporting children through their chemotherapy, physiotherapy, there's work with drug and alcohol addiction, there's specific ones for cerebral palsy, which I loved, that use biofeedback and sensors to tell exactly which muscles are being stimulated and working. We also want to incorporate with the biofeedback and the neurofeedback like we've heard about. This is just some of the areas of the research that's happening. So with particular, just the VR of swimming with dolphins has already shown an amazing effect. Chronic pain is one of the biggest benefits that I've found with it. As soon as people put the VR on, you can see them smile more, they're breathing easier, and they're forgetting their pain. And that's what boosts me every time. So with children that are going through bone marrow transplants, they often have to go through a period of isolation in hospital. So you can imagine if you're a child by yourself in hospital, you can't see your friends, you can't go out, you've got limited visitors. It can be a very distressing and traumatic time. But with VR, we can take them away from that. We can take them to a playground, we can go to visit space, we can play games. I think a lot of people think of VR as just the entertainment and gaming side, but there's so many different benefits with it. And for the children, that gaming side is really important. Play therapy does have a place. If that's going to help them go through their traumatic experience, why wouldn't we help them with that? So one of the things that we're really focused on with the VR is trying to make it as multi-sensory and immersive as possible. So we've got a centre that will be opening later this year, and we'll be combining hydrotherapy with VR. So you'll be in the water, you'll be doing your physio or your hydrotherapy, and with the headsets, you'll see dolphins swimming all around you. So it's going to be so beautiful. We're then going to get the smells of the sea. So you'll see the water, see the dolphins, feel the water, smell the sea. For all intents and purposes, your brain will believe you're there. We've also got different things that we're planning at the minute with flying experiences. So there's physiotherapy swings where it enables you to lie down facing downwards with your arms and legs free. So if I put a fan with some wind in your hair, get the VR where you're flying above the trees, your body is going to feel like you really are flying. And it's the same with in the water or those experiences. If you're in a wheelchair all day, just getting out and being able to relax has a major medical benefit with it. So this is some photos of the sort of things that we're going to be doing. And as I said, with the multisensory aspect, we're finding that because VR draws on all your sensory and cognitive abilities, it really does make it a perfect tool within healthcare. My passion, however, is about being on the community level. I started this because things are so hard to access. So I don't want it to end up in hospitals. You already have to be poorly to experience it. We want it to be preventative, people to be able to access it at home. Care homes and things we've started going out and doing training for as well. So although we do individual and group sessions, we can also go out and help staff to do their own group sessions. So a lot of the longer term healthcare units have found these amazing, especially with dementia and Alzheimer's. With VR, you can go back in back in time, you can visit the village that you grew up in, or you can travel the world and go to the places you always wanted to. We've got art and music. So as soon as they hear a song from their childhood, they light up, they start singing along. And even if they've been non-verbal all day and not really engaging, as soon as that song comes on, the change is immediate, and it's such an amazing experience to be a part of this. So there is the package that we've designed at the minute. So this also enables people to do the therapies at home. We've also recently got a grant from the University of Northampton, and through that we've developed our first app. So this is going to go with the hydrotherapy. So we've got our own underwater content with dolphins swimming around, and it's going to be amazing. With regarding to funding, we've had a couple of grants here and there, nothing on that level. One day. Most of it has been a business loan through me, but we're applying for grants continuously and always looking for support and funding with it. We've got underwater VR headsets, which are made for us in Russia. These aren't available in England yet, so this is getting quite a lot of excitement over there. So with the hydrotherapy, if I didn't make it clear, that's how it's working. We've got 2 different underwater masks. One of them is that one up there. So that one's got a full snorkel on it that's not on there at the second, but it's got a full snorkel, full face mask. You can go swimming, look at all the corals underneath you, the dolphins. You're really just in my hydro pool. We've also got another one that's similar to the one above it. So this is just covering your eyes. So this one is better for people that have a bit of tactile triggers. They don't want too much on their face or touching them, or for whatever reason. So we've got different types. You can also go in the pool without it if you want to. We've got other kind of interactive experiences going on. So there'll also be sensory kind of lights and different interactive things on the walls. We've also got plans for AR. So we've got artwork going along the centre, and when you hold your phone up and look at it, the dolphins will all start swimming around. So you don't have to be putting on a headset. You can just hold up a phone or a tablet and have a quick look and kind of build the person up slowly with the technology. And that's what we do. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Rebecca. I would start with 2 questions from my side. One is regarding the product or service itself. Do I understand correctly that it's basically a complementary therapy that is, let's say, going along with, let's say, some physiological therapy, or is it standalone therapy? So that's quite...
No, it can be both, but it can support traditional therapies. I'm trying to bridge the traditional and the new technology. But I am passionate about it being a community thing. So this isn't a clinical psychology appointment where you're on one-to-one at the hospital. It can support that work, but it's for a person to be doing at home in the community. They're not having to go to a hospital to get the benefits from it.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And a question that is related to that, who's actually then your customer group? Is it a B2B business? So where then the hospitals or therapists, let's say, would, buy it? Or is it the end customer that would buy it, or maybe the health insurance and that are paying for it?
This is one of the things that I struggled on, because in my mind, it's the end user I'm passionate about. They're the ones that I want to get to. However, obviously, they're not always the ones that are going to be paying. So at the minute, it's funded through charities and private healthcare. They pay for the group sessions. We do a sliding scale as a social enterprise as well. And the plan in the future is that it would be free for people with disabilities on benefits. And we're also looking into get it through social prescriptions, so you'll be able to get it through your GP as well. Plus, you can just turn up and pay privately.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. Ariane?
Actually, I had related questions, but you partly answered. For me, it's the question of for the end user, the access as in terms of affordability, because you do say it's social, but in case it's not, or if people want to use it, I'm thinking even beyond our developed countries, institutions who could buy a few to help them in their program. So to have an idea, what is the cost and affordability of it?
So at the minute, with our group sessions, as I said, we're doing the sliding scale. So private healthcare pays 3 times the price that the charities do. So charities is only about £50 for a group session, which obviously works out per person quite cheap. In the future, like I said, I do want to make it free for benefits, charities and things like that. But obviously as a start-up, we've got to get the revenue in. But with the headsets, they can vary in prices from a few £100 up to a lot more. So with the centre, we plan to get a lot of the expensive equipment in so people can use it and benefit from it. Because I can't afford the equipment myself. It is so expensive. And that's kind of what's motivated me more so to get out there.
Okay, thanks. Helle?
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. As I'm working in the development cooperation, I was thinking about how much training does other persons do have in order to work with this kind of virtual reality therapy? Is it, can you understand it on your own, or do you need other workshops in order to understand how does it work, the whole system with Oculus Go? Because I would say that in other countries that are not well structured and a little bit under the development of Europe, it could be a nice component of therapy, because in the developing countries we don't have so much possibilities to have physiotherapy, although in the rural countryside, for example. So is it a possibility to expand it also to these countries and to develop a content on how to explain it virtually in a YouTube tool or something like this, how it works? Thank you.
Yes, definitely. So with other countries, with this, a lot of the experiences, they're not based on language. You know, you can just sit back and enjoy it, and it's the same for everyone. I am looking into getting the training accredited and making it professional training. However, you don't need training to use VR. On a community level like that, I wouldn't be saying they need to go and spend thousands on training for a week and get it all out. If an 80-year-old with dementia can pick it up immediately, most people can.
Holger, Matthias, further questions from your side?
I just want to say, sorry, I like the passion that you say, okay, as a therapist, I go into VR and just explore it, which makes you, I think, very unique in your field of therapy, and that you say you don't build hardware, you don't do new stuff, it's out there, you know, Facebook is doing it and Google is doing it, you just use it. That's what always kept in my head, like the one thing that you say you have the expertise to make, maybe, you know, you invent the certificate, you scale this, you do the training, and also the multisensory experience, which makes you even more unique, that this could maybe be the thing which really scales. So that they say beyond the United Kingdom, you can just say this is the course on how to do this, but you go to your local market and just buy one of those devices, and then you have a unique selling proposition in New Delhi or in Sydney or in Berlin.
Yeah, definitely. And that's part of why we're also wanting to develop the app, because I want to make that free to download so everyone can benefit from the experiences at home. But then to keep things sustainable, there'll be extra things on there that you can buy. And the other brilliant thing is, with 360 cameras, you can go and film your own videos and put them in VR, so people from other countries can go and video their own things and what's meaningful to their culture. It's very easy to actually create your own things like this. But yeah, my background's nursing, I'm healthcare, so it's all been a big learning curve for me, but it's going so amazingly.
So Matthias, you have the pleasure of the last question.
The last question really went into a similar direction. For me, like, how would you describe really the innovation of what you do? Because the hardware exists now, a part of the dolphin video, as far as I understood, the content already pre-exists, and there's going to be much more content out there. So my question is there a need for new content? So how would you describe the video? What's the core of the innovation of your project?
From what the feedback I've had, that it's the hydrotherapy and combining the hydro and the VR with the dolphins and the multi-sensory aspect. Obviously, there's standalone little VR things available, and then you've got different therapies, and it's kind of bridging it all together. I've never thought of myself as an entrepreneur or an innovator, so I still find it funny that you're asking me that. But yeah, it's bringing together all the people as well. So I've got a lot of support in England from charities, universities, hospitals, lots of different people. And now it's going around the world. So I was invited to speak at ITU in Malta. Now I'm in Vienna. So it seems to be going round.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So just from my perspective, I think you are, amongst other things, an amazing entrepreneur and innovator. So thank you for sharing your idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Let's give a big hand of applause to VR Theo, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we already have reached the end of our session, and I think I just want to use the opportunity to thank again our 4 great presenters that presented their social enterprises. And please feel encouraged to reach out to the individual entrepreneurs if you have an idea how you could help them to scale their impact. I think that is really appreciated, and usually it's really about creating an ecosystem that supports each other in building these great solutions forward. So please reach out to the presenters and offer your help. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank my co-fellow panelists for providing their expertise and advice to the social entrepreneurs. It's great to have you here today, and thanks a lot for all your comments. And yeah, last but by no means least, thanks a lot also to you, my dear audience, that you took the time this morning to listen to the great entrepreneurs. And yeah, I wish you all a fruitful rest of the conference. Thanks so much.